Okay, Darren, so this is the recap. I'm gonna try to remember how we went through the process, but um, let's get into it. Okay, so we have our base layer. We want to duplicate that and basically go straight into frequency separation. Okay, I'm gonna do it by the book. Low, high, and remember we do our low level, our low layer with dust and scratches. And we decided for these images, 12% would be a good blending ratio. Well, not ratio, but amount. Okay, I'm going to close that. And the dust and scratches thing is basically, it's a crisper blur. The details remain, you can see a lot more of the details in the image when you use dust and scratches. Now, of course, it's just a different type of blur, but I mean, it's still blurred. But of course, you could turn it up and blur it till you can't see any of the definition on the blur level. But at the same amount, if I was to do this with Gaussian blur at also 12%, it would just be super fuzzy. And so you have a little bit more control and you get a cleaner, I believe, a cleaner frequency separation when you use dust and scratches. So going up to the high level, the high layer, we're going to do apply image, scale 2% or 2, invert, low, on add. Okay, you know all this, just going through the motions here. Voila, blending linear light. I need to upgrade my RAM because this thing is so slow. Okay, cool. So on the low layer and lighten things up a little bit so we can really see what's going on. So on the duplicate layer, you want to blend it screen and 50%. Jeez Louise. There we go. Come on. That just opens everything up so we can see better. And we're going to just merge this down because at the end, once the makeup is done and the skin and all of the beauty aspects of the picture are done, if you want, which I know you do, to go darker, then you can go darker on top of everything else. But for now, just so we can see exactly what's going on with her makeup, I like to lighten things up a little bit. Obviously, you won't have to do that with every image, but with the really dark ones, you probably will. And also this tone that she's at right now is a good place to start. Even if you're going to darken it down, it's a good place to start because you can use this color as her mid-tone, and then you can use a darker layer for all of the shadowy parts and a lighter layer for the highlights. And then once that's done, you can darken it down globally if you want. but that way you'll have dimension to the face. Okay, so first things first, we're going to come up a little bigger and we're going to start to blend out these harsh transitions on her eye makeup. I'm going to start here, making sure I'm on the low layer, making sure my lasso tool is selected and I'm at 5 pixels. And I'm also on the main select option, because when you select with that one, if you make a mistake and you need to move on someplace else, you can just click and it'll go away. Okay, so let's start right there. Gaussian blur. Let's do about that much. Let's do it again. Let's pull in some of this. Okay. I don't know if you can see, but that transition between this grayish tone and the brownish tone has been softened. We're going to do this section here. Let's come up higher and into the black. And there we go. And down in here. There we go. Okay. I'm seeing a harsh line right here. I'm going to do this whole section one more time all together. There. And for this part, I'm going to take the pen tool. You can use the other pen tool that you like. I'm going to come right under this eyebrow. This is a little different than what I did before, because each time you do something, it doesn't necessarily go exactly how it did the last time. So I don't recall having that white highlight up there the last time, so I'm just going to go in and get rid of that. But I'm going to use a different technique. So I want it to be sort of soft, so I'm using a number 2, or 2 pixels. And then I'm going to use a paintbrush, create a new layer. I'm going to sample this area right above the eyebrow, the light part, and just at a brush about, I don't know, 20–30%. I'm just going to start to paint in a highlight and kind of get rid of that white stripe that's there. Here, where that part was gray, I'm going to sample this brown tone here and gently, at an even lower opacity, paint some of that brown in this inner corner of the eye. Let's remove the selection to see what we have. Okay, so you see right there that transition has been smoothed out a whole lot. Okay, so now I'm actually going to tone this highlight down a little bit, because that's not a transition line that was there. So I'm using some of this brown from here and painting it over that light part, just to tone that lightness down a little bit. We'll come back to highlighting and shadowing and doing the makeup in a second, but for now I just want to kind of smooth the skin out and get things ready for the foundation, for the eyeshadow. Okay, so now we look, and with the texture layer, it's already looking a lot better. We've gotten rid of those harsh lines. Let me create a group. This way I can toggle on and off between the before and after. So all of that heavy inky black, we've gotten really neutralized. Now we just have to deal with this harsh line here and this color issue in here. So, and if this is our result, this part here is perfectly fine, because we're already there from the really bright highlights here fading into the deeper, darker tones. So this is actually a good start. We just have to get rid of this light area and get rid of the color. Okay, so back into our group. I'm going to go ahead and commit this to the image by merging down. I'm going to create another layer, a duplicate layer of the color, well, the low layer. I'm going to duplicate that and come up to image, black and white. And here you can change the value. You can make the reds darker red depending on what color eyeshadow you're trying to get. You can go really dark, you can go super bright, and you can change all of the tones in the image to affect the final result of the eyeshadow that you're trying to make. For this example, we're going to take the same brown that we used to even out the color over the eyelid a bit. So we're going to hit Tint, click on the box, and come down to the color picker, color picker, and click OK. Now I can tell already this is a little too red, so I'm going to come down and make it a little yellow. Not that much, maybe that much, and darken it down just a tiny bit and see what that looks like. So we're going to create a mask here. Hover over the square and hit Command I to invert it. And now with white, we're going to bring in that color on the eyelid. Actually, the eyelid is looking pretty good up there. You don't really need to bring the color up there, just maybe on this orange part. Let's see what that looks like. We'll do 50 some odd %, bring our brush down a little bit, and start to paint in. Okay, that's very red, so we need to tone that down. The way you bring reds down is cyan is the opposite of red. You want to bring some cyan into it, and that will tone out the red. Same thing with magenta and green. If something's too blue, you want to add a little yellow to it. If something's too pink, you want to add a little green to it. But that's color theory, and if you guys want, I can get into it at some other time. But I digress. Okay, so this isn't really working too well because we're still in the red zone. So what I'm going to do is backtrack. I'm going to try something different. I'm going to throw this away. I'm going to do another duplicate layer. Come back up to black and white. And maybe try the same tone again. Whoops. But a lot less saturated. Come down there. And yeah, let's try that. This is another way you can create a mask. Come up to Layer, Layer Mask, Reveal All or Hide All. We want to hide all. And we want to paint with white. And we want to bring that back in and come up a little stronger, smaller brush, just so I can stay on this orange area. And that's looking better than before. I think it's hard because the color itself is orange and the color I'm bringing in is the same, basically, just a different strength. So let's try to tone it down again with a little cyan. There you go. And the last thing I'm going to do, which is something I didn't do earlier, is I'm going to copy this back, this high pass layer, and I'm going to bring it up to Image, Black and White. I'm going to make it black and white, and I'm going to, come on. I'm going to do something very interesting. I'm going to create a mask. I'm going to invert the mask, Command I, and I'm going to erase with the brush tool, with the eraser tool, I'm sorry, on the lower high mask, not the copy, the lower one. I'm going to erase those specular highlights around that orange part of the eyeshadow. Literally just erase it. That whole really that necessary there. But if you remember how it was, that orange is gone. And when we got rid of the color by painting over it with these what do you call them, black and white adjustment layer, we got rid of the color with that, but there was still some residual color on the texture layer. So by creating a new texture layer, this one here, and then converting it to black and white, you got rid of the orange that was on the texture layer. So now we have a black and white texture layer here and the color texture layer here. So on this color texture layer, we erased all of that texture. So gone with that texture went the orange. And then we created a duplicate of it that's now black and white, and we just bring that back in. So now we get the texture back minus the color. Okay, so this is just a starting point to our makeup. Now, what I'm going to do is take this texture layer where we just brought in the black and white version of it. We're going to reduce the opacity to about 50%, and we're going to merge it down. The reason we reduce it 50% is because when you merge two texture layers together, it increases the strength, it increases the sharpness like by 100%. So if I were to show you, just for an example, if I were to keep it at 100%, just keep your eye on this area here because that's the only part that's going to show. When I merge it down, you see how it's extra crunchy in this area? Because it makes it even more sharp than it was originally. So before we merge it down, we want to reduce the opacity down to 50% and then go ahead and merge it down. And that'll just make it look normal. Okay, so I'm gonna now, since I got the color mostly gone from the eye, I'm gonna go ahead and merge down this into the low layer. So we're back at a basic frequency separation combo. Okay, so again, going back into this area, you see some weird color variations. We're not going to worry about trying to correct the color because the look that we're going for is really dark. So we're just going to go ahead and make it really dark. So you can either duplicate this low layer or you can make a new clean layer and just paint directly on that. If you're going to use paint, that works thusly. Turn the background layer on. Oh, you know what, Sean? Oh, I'm all over the place, Darren. I'm going to probably edit this because I sound really stupid and crazy and I'm all over the place. Before we do the darkening of the area, of the shadow area, I want to do the eyeliner. We didn't do that earlier either. So let's take the pen tool and just basically trace what's already there. Meanwhile, you're tightening things up. Things that aren't sharp, you're making them sharp. So we're going to come in thusly. Using your tool, you have more control. I prefer this tool. Coming around. Like here, you can decide how you want to shape the eyeliner. I think instead of doing this little scoop here, I think I'm going to come straight across with it. Not necessarily straight across, but yeah, I want it to be more like that. Make our selection. 2 pixels is good. Making sure we're on the background layer. With a brush, a soft brush, you can sample some of the black in here. And not with 100%. Let's start with 50%. Babe, I'm doing a tutorial, babe.
You doing another tutorial?
I told you I had to record one and send it back to him. But okay, just wait 1 second. Let me just finish this one little section and then I'll pause it and go back to it. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay, so now that you have this selection made, you don't have to fill it in solid. You just take the black paintbrush and just go over areas and gently start to bring in that black. Like I'm not even gonna come in this section. I'm just gonna stay back here. It doesn't have to be solid graphic. It's gonna be pretty graphic anyway, but it doesn't have to be like magic marker. So there you go. That's the eyeliner. That's the eyeliner I'm choosing to do. You could do yours completely different. All right, so I'm gonna pause for the cause.